All right, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome in, everyone. Once again, this is Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. Really wish I would have gone live on Saturday, but things did not pan out in my favor, unfortunately. But it is what it is. We're going live today before our upcoming heat wave. But first, we have to get through a weak mid-latitude cyclone. This is going to bring some rain and some wind into the area over the next 24 hours. And we'll also have to watch for convergence zone activity up north as well over Snohomish County. Could have some possible thunderstorms tomorrow, mainly within the convergence zone, but the likelihood outside of the convergence zone is much less. The dynamics overall are nowhere near as favorable as we saw on Saturday. All right, first on YouTube, hello there, Ashley. Welcome in. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you all can hear me all right. Everything looks good on my end. Make sure the Facebook comments refresh automatically as well. And I got to make sure I share the YouTube stream to X and Blue Sky as well before I get too distracted here. Once again, TikTok is streaming on the phone, so you guys are watching right now, head over to the Puget Sound Stormwatch Facebook or YouTube channel, whichever one you prefer, and the live stream has fired up on those fronts. ETG Vortex, welcome back. Says, hear you loud and clear. Excellent. Thank you for the feedback. All right. So anyone who is just tuning in on TikTok, feel free to head over to Facebook and YouTube, where I'm starting a live stream talking about some sneaky wind potential. Not a lot of stations and sources have talked about it, but it's popped up on my radar, and I feel like I need to talk about it in case something pops up out of the blue tomorrow morning. So that's what this is all about. I am live talking about some potential wind tomorrow morning across western Washington. So we're going to post that to Blue Sky and then copy and paste it over to X real quick. See, we've got 30 of you guys hopping in on Facebook and 14 of you guys hopping in on YouTube. Awesome sauce. So far, so good. Welcome in, everyone. For those of you just tuning in, this is Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. We're kind of looking at a much more lower end scenario here. Thank you, Kara, for the like on TikTok. Lower end scenario, but still, it's something that has to be talked about in case it goes a little bit more towards the moderate end. But again, we're not expecting anything major. So right now, here on Radar Scope, I'm showing a loop over the last couple of hours of this mid-latitude cyclone making landfall right now. Or it's got a while before it makes landfall. It's going to make landfall later tonight and early tomorrow morning. It looks like it's going to make landfall somewhere around the central Washington coast. Stephanie says, funny how we don't call storms what they actually are, like a cyclone. Yeah, so the technical name for this is a mid-latitude cyclone. We also call it low pressure systems or troughs as well, like surface troughs. Here's what it looks like on visible satellite right now. And once again, for some reason, it is not showing the right screen. That's weird because it's, oh yeah, that's right, because I restarted OBS. I think that has gotten me the last few times, actually, because I've had to restart. So we're going to try this one more time. There we go. All good now. All right, TikTok, we're probably going to be winding it down here in a few minutes, so please go ahead. All I see is cat. This is dog hair. This is German Shepherd hair. I have 3 German Shepherds. Yeah, that's the thing. On Facebook and YouTube, my camera's up in the corner and it's a bit lower definition, so you can't see like all the crystal clear details, like the fact that I didn't shave today, or I've got dog hair all over my shirt, for example. Which, by the way, black is a great color to wear. Interesting, there's a delay. Yes. So there's about an 8 to 10 second delay on Facebook and YouTube compared to TikTok. That's because I'm streaming right off my phone here on TikTok and not going through streaming software, which has some latency. So you will notice that the Facebook and YouTube is a few seconds behind TikTok. Shellbell says, hello, neighbor. Hello there. Thank you for tuning in. I'm a little bit ADHD at the moment, so please bear with me. Gotta remember what I was doing. Okay. I think I know now, so... Yeah, so this is the satellite image. Switch to YouTube so I could do more like thumbs up and donations. Well, thank you, Julie, for tuning in. I believe Julie Bradford. I swear I always mix up you and Julie Rogers. I think, yes, you're the one that's up in Oso. So I'm going to play a 96 frame loop here on satellite, showing the development of this mid-latitude cyclone moving in. And just like that, right off the bat, Julie is sending gifted memberships. Thank you so much, Julie Bradford, for your donation of 5 gifted memberships on YouTube. And Kara B on TikTok just send the heart me. Thank you so much. Again, I know you guys on TikTok are missing out, but if you guys want to see the live stream and all of the screens I'm looking at, then Puget Sound Stormwatch on Facebook and YouTube is where you want to go. I'm going to be ending the TikTok live stream in a few minutes. I just wanted to see who was on at the moment and talk to you guys before I went live on Facebook and YouTube. But otherwise, I'm not going to be showing you guys the screen, unfortunately. It's too much of a hassle. So yeah, Kara says popping over to YouTube. Excellent. That is the best thing you could do. Is getting a few prerequisites still set up on here. I want to make sure my models are up to date, which they're not. So I'm going to refresh those real quick. I'm going to start out on the European. Susie Glitch says, thank you for your information of the weather, even when it's crazy. Yeah, gladly. Glad to be here to help you guys and make things a little more simpler as well. Let's load up the most recent European model, which I actually have not seen yet. The 18Z is fully rendered. I think we have a little bit of an uptrend, actually. We do. Slight bit of an uptrend, a couple miles per hour for Seattle, but the same for Tacoma. So I'll have to look into the details on that here in just a moment. Rarely Perfect says, so cool. Thank you for the kind words. Okay, that's a spam account, so never mind that. All right, TikTok, we're going to be ending. Come over to the Puget Sound Stormwatch Facebook and YouTube channels for the full live stream. Yeah, going to be winding down here on TikTok. I just wanted to tune in for a little bit to basically lead you guys over, since I have an audience here on TikTok that doesn't exactly know that I do this live streaming on YouTube and Facebook as well. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in. See you guys for the next TikTok live stream. I'm hoping in the future I'll be able to get permission to simulcast this to TikTok as well on the PC without having to go through the phone. So with that being said, thank you guys all so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on Facebook and YouTube. And have a great night, folks. Okay. One less little distraction out of the way. One thing I notice is when I'm also streaming the TikTok, it kind of takes my focus off of the main stream, and I do not want that to be the case. So I now have my full devotion again to you guys on Facebook and YouTube, and hopefully a lot of you guys on Facebook didn't tune off. Good news is we still have about 40 of you guys on Facebook and 20 of you guys on YouTube. So we're talking about wind potential. Again, it's not super high potential, but it's enough to kind of, kind of grab your attention. So 42 miles per hour, for example, for Seattle between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. tomorrow. It's something that you overlook in the fall and winter, but it's something that really kind of raises concern when you're in late spring, early summer. And that is mainly because of foliage on the trees. And our ground is soaked now from the rain as well. The steady rain for several hours, that's only going to enhance some of the effects. So we'll be diving deeper here in just a moment. I do need to drink some water though. Christina Bell says, love your site. Thank you for the kind words. Shell Bell says, I'm used to watching you on Facebook. Yeah. I always stream to both Facebook and YouTube because an overwhelming majority of my audience is on Facebook. But if I do it there, then I leave my YouTube audience out. So before I got access to a pretty cool plugin called Atom Multistream, I actually just did most of my streaming on YouTube and just shared the link over to Facebook, but it wouldn't notify people when I did that. Unlike when I go live directly on Facebook, it notifies people right away. And so the more reach that we can get through that, I feel like the more successful the live streams will be. So that's the goal, to reach as many people with weather information as possible. So Ashley says, very unhappy about this potential for wind. Thought we were done with this until late fall. That's what a lot of us thought too, but Mother Nature works in mysterious ways, especially when the jet stream is so erratic. So right now we're on the north end of the jet stream. So the jet stream has sagged south, and that is allowing what's called a trough to move into the area. And said trough in the upper levels is allowing for a surface low to form, aka a mid-latitude cyclone, and that is what's moving into the region over the next 24 hours or so. And these are famous for giving us some pretty decent windstorms over the years, but this shouldn't hold a candle to any of our fall and wintertime storms. The only reason it's really being talked about is just because of the time of the year. Even if it's a lower end one, like 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts, it's really nothing to run home about. But when you have the trees fully covered in leaves right now, and peak foliage during the year, that's my main concern right there. Matt is asking, what's Gold Bar, Washington going to look like tomorrow morning? Probably pretty rainy. We'll go look into those details here in just a moment. And the wind will probably be kicking up quite a bit. Let's go look at the most recent HRRR model first. I think the 23Z should be done, which it is. So this goes out to 18 hours, and this is, again, my first time looking at this model as well. So we'll see what this one has to say. This initialized at 4 p.m., so we have a forecast out to, I believe, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, which we do. It's looking pretty similar to what I've seen before in previous runs. So this has winds picking up a bit down here in the South Sound and Southwest Interior at around 10 p.m. tonight. So the time is up here in the top left corner. There's also a legend down here that shows you what the colors mean. But just to simplify it for you guys, these pinks and purples right here are usually between 30 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts. And the reds are 45 to 55. Now, if we see anything yellow, that usually means 60 plus. But we're not going to have to worry about that here on the west side. It's going to be more of south central Washington wind threat for those 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts, where we do have wind advisories in effect right now. But this won't warrant any wind advisories west of the Cascades. This is too low end of an event, but like I said, the time of the year, again, is the only reason why this is worthy of talking about it. Mike Mullen on Facebook says, wind? I'm sick of picking up after these fir trees. Yeah, I agree. Hopefully I got the word out with enough time for people to clean up their outdoor loose furniture or any items out there, because it's probably not going to blow away, but it's a just in case. I'm more worried about like outdoor umbrellas, for example, which will easily catch the wind. So this is showing at around 1 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. Tacoma could have some wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour. We could have some locally stronger wind gusts down here in northern Lewis and southeastern Thurston counties. And another typical spot where you get some of these stronger winds out of the south or southwest. Wind direction for the most part should be out of the southwest for most of us. But once the westerly surge picks up at around daybreak tomorrow, then winds will switch to out of the west for areas downstream of the strait. You zoom in a bit on the South Sound, sure. Unfortunately, this is a digital zoom. So I'm using pivotal weather, which isn't really the best for looking at things on the local level. You know, it's not as good as WeatherBell, but we could also look at a new, well, not a new site, but a new program that came to PC called Weatherfront as well. You guys have probably heard of it. It's becoming very popular, and I eventually do plan to switch to it in the near term, but it's got some really advanced features too. But yeah, that is called Weatherfront. They have an app on iOS, and an app is coming soon to Android. I believe it's just weatherfront.com, but for the time being, I'm still going to use my pivotal weather, my radar scope, and my windy. Which, if we go over the windy real quick, you can zoom in on the satellite on here. Let's go to the most recent image. So you see our little swirl right here? This is the center of low pressure here. And this is the bent back occlusion, or BBO, which is where the occluded front is. So there's a cold front that extends south of it along the coast, and then a warm front that extends horizontally up into Washington State. So a lot of the rain that we're getting right now is from the warm front, and then the wind shift and pressure rise is expected to occur as soon as the cold front moves over and onto the Washington coast. It'll take some time because this is a slow moving system. So it'll take a little bit for the front to move into Western Washington and then have that subsequent pressure rise that will kick up the wind a bit. So there's that. So unfortunately, I don't have any ways of customizing the map, so we're stuck with the cities and the color code that are provided. But we can approximate that most of the South Sound and Olympia area is going to get what Tacoma sees. So this is showing around 31 miles per hour at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning for Tacoma, and maybe 23 for Seattle. And again, the reason that the wind gusts are going to be so low in this white void area is because of the convergence zone. And the convergence zone could bring a thunderstorm threat to northern King and southern Snohomish, maybe even eastern Kitsap and Jefferson counties as well tomorrow. And we'll go dive into that here in a moment as well. But I just want to make sure I get some of these prerequisites and initial questions out of the way first, to the best of my ability, because I see the questions are beginning to come in pretty quick. Appreciate everyone's patience, by the way. What about power outages? Definitely possible, but they should not be super widespread. Probably very localized. So I'm expecting maybe we'll have at most a few thousand power outages, but not much more than that, if all goes as planned. Debbie says, thanks for the information. Sure thing. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you everyone who has shared the live so far and reacted. It really helps Facebook pump it out to additional people. Let's see. Maybe.boo. Hello, welcome back on YouTube. Do you think 90-degree highs next week is likely across Western Washington? I do believe so. You can also examine that here in a little bit as well. But I do want to talk about this most recent wind forecast here. So we're looking at the 4 p.m. run of the HRRR high resolution forecast model. It is also highlighting an area of enhanced wind gusts around the Shelton area too. Shelton, possibly Olympia. And again, these would be coming out of the southwest. So southwest towards the northeast, but out of the west here along the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And then this will fire up our convergence zone somewhere around northern King or southern Snohomish counties. The bright red and yellow areas, these are 55 to 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts. But these are mostly going to be either around the mountains or on the east slopes of the Cascades. So they do have some wind advisories out right now for south central Washington, downstream of the Cascades. And, this is normal to get some strong winds wrapping around Mount Rainier, just because of the elevation. Winds are always stronger with increased elevation than towards the surface. So Everett could get some wind gusts out of the west at 35 miles per hour at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And then my main concern is down here in Tacoma. This is showing around 7 a.m. tomorrow where we could get some wind gusts up towards 45 miles per hour. However, I do believe that this model could be overdoing it a little bit. So if we shave 5 miles per hour off of this total, I do believe that's more realistic for what we're going to see tomorrow morning. But that does bring up another issue too, the timing as well. The timing is different based on which model you look at. I'm going to pull up the NAM 3KM here, but I'm going to only talk about this loosely because remember, this was the forecast model that completely dumped the bed during the Christmas Eve windstorm forecast at the end of last year. So you see at the same time here on the NAM 3KM, it's a bit different. It doesn't show that super strong wind down here for Tacoma at 7 a.m., but it does show it much earlier in the morning. So let's go over the timing one more time. Hang on, guys. I see some of your questions coming in, so I'm going to take a quick pause, drink some water, and then answer those real quick before we proceed. So again, I really appreciate your guys' patience. All right, let's see. Let's go through Facebook first. All right, Kim Leonard, hello. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to see you back. Elizabeth Robertson is asking, what about the Southwest coast? If you're talking about the Pacific County coast down here, then you could certainly get some blustery to even low-end damaging gusts overnight and early tomorrow morning, but I do believe the likelihood for this is pretty low. It really just depends how strong the low pressure system is when it makes landfall and exactly where it makes landfall, because the pressure gradient itself is not super impressive. That's why I'm not really freaking out about this. It's just, again, the time of the year is really my main concern. So the Southwest coast could get pretty windy, and you see that the NAM actually highlights where the bent back occlusion is expected to move into pretty well. So it shows some pretty impressive detail. That's what I like about the high-res models is the details. It shows it'll likely make landfall somewhere around northern Grace Harbor County, maybe southern Jefferson County, later on tonight, and then the subsequent pressure rise will follow after that. So wind gusts down here along the coast hopefully shouldn't be much more than 45 miles per hour, and this should mostly be out of the west or southwest direction. So I'm not seeing any major impacts, but do be advised with, again, foliage on the trees. You could have some localized tree damage and power outages, but I'm not expecting anything major again. But see, my concern here again is on timing, because it shows Tacoma getting approximately 42 mile per hour wind gusts as soon as midnight, and Seattle getting around 37 miles per hour. Now, part of the issue I do see here as well is it's having some issues showing the convergence zone. Perhaps that's because the center of low pressure hasn't passed over the Olympics yet, so we don't have that void of winds over the Central Sound. But you do see it brings the convergence zone a bit farther north than the HRRR does over central Snohomish County and maybe across the island and eastern Jefferson counties as well. But this won't be until later on in the morning and early afternoon time. But it does this NAM model does show peak wind gusts between midnight and 3 a.m. approximately, with 45 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of the South Sound, mainly over the water at around 1 a.m. So there is quite a bit of a timing discrepancy here, and I can't stress that enough. So there could be some variability to this, and that's why I very loosely worded my forecast so that I didn't throw anyone off guard and I just wanted to discuss how uncertain this scenario is. Normally, when you have these systems start to form a couple hundred miles off the coast, the uncertainty is very high. These late breaking waves that come in usually throw forecasters for a loop and can sometimes lead to surprises as well. So, as a little review from what we showed earlier, for those of you who didn't make it in when we started, this is what the old reliable European model shows, the European deterministic. And you see it does show some stronger winds here, approximately 48 miles per hour for Oak Harbor and Deception Pass. Maybe some 45 mile per hour gusts north of Port Townsend and Squim as well, and then some 30 to maybe even some isolated 40 plus mile per hour gusts for the Central and South Sound. Now, this is a 6-hour average, so this time frame is between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. tomorrow. And then this is what it shows for 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. tomorrow. Quite a bit less, but still something that we have to keep eyes on just in case. And then this is 11 p.m. tonight to 5 a.m. tomorrow. So just something we have to keep tabs on, because from the 12Z as shown here to the 18Z, we do have a slight bit of an uptick for the Central Sound on wind gusts. But then you see, as we get into tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning, when we go into the transition phase into our next heat wave setup, the winds are going to be a thing of the past. I'm hoping this should just be sort of a short-term issue and not much more than that. That is the expectation. Windy is saying up to 50 for McKenna-Roy area and 60 for Seattle. I don't buy that. Not sure which model you were looking at on that, but I highly doubt that we'll get any wind gusts above 45. I'm even kind of doubting we get above 40 for most of these areas. You know, I'm just kind of playing it conservatively here. I don't want to throw anyone off guard, and I worded my posts today very carefully just to account for the amount of uncertainty that there is in this forecast. How's the westerly surge looking for Port Townsend? Thanks. Hopefully you're still around, Connor Neely. Unfortunately, that comment was posted 7 minutes ago. But anyways, it's looking rather strong for you guys, but not super strong. It's going to be more of your normal westerly surges that we see in the fall and winter time. Nothing major, but also enough to make you notice that it's pretty windy. So I'd say your area will probably get wind gusts between 35 and 40 miles per hour as soon as midnight, but as late as, say, 6 a.m. There is still a bit of time discrepancy on this too. The models are not lining up when it comes to timing or strength, which is common. And I have to talk about this again very carefully, because not trying to give you guys the wrong idea. This should be nothing to stress over, realistically. I just wanted to go live for a bit to talk about the possibility of this, as well as maybe an isolated thunderstorm threat under the convergence zone area tomorrow. But it really should be nothing to run home about. Hopefully not. I want to check lightning flash density as well on the European. And you see, it has a little bit of an area highlighted up here towards the international border. It has a little bit of a better zone here under the convergence zone. And this highlights areas from Everett southward towards Linwood over to the Cascade foothills. So areas like Monroe, Sultan, and Gold Bar may want to watch out for this as well. Of course, with better lightning chances over northeastern Washington, which is a given because they don't have the Pacific to worry about. So let's go look at, I'm going to go look at the HRRR simulated reflectivity, most recent one. But I want to look at lightning flash density first and see if it agrees. Now, normally this overdoes it. So these dark shaded areas that you see here normally don't amount for any lightning. It's once it starts getting into the blue, though, the 0.1 down here, that's when I start to think, okay, we have better chances for lightning flashes. So like down here in the Tri-Cities, for example, tonight. So the area I'm looking at, though, closely is central Snohomish County. Are these models showing wind speed at sea and ground level? Yes. They're showing it at approximately 2 meters or about... No, actually, depending on the model. So for the HRRR, for example, is showing it at 10 meters. Some models show it at 2 meters. But realistically, anywhere between about 6 feet to 35 feet above the ground. So in effect, the surface. Yeah, these aren't showing winds aloft. Winds aloft are always going to be much stronger, but it doesn't really matter much. When it comes to surface observations. At least not all the time. So let's go look at some composite reflectivity. And this is simulating the rain bands coming in fairly well so far. And then you see the area where the moisture wraps around the area of low pressure here. This is the approximate time that we make landfall, which is looking like around maybe 10 to 11 p.m. The inner area of low pressure makes landfall somewhere along the North Grays Harbor coast, most likely. And then that area of low pressure will begin to trek inland across the Puget Sound, and then we'll likely have our pressure rise and our subsequent winds right behind that. How long is the wind threat expected to last? I'm hoping not long, maybe a few hours at most. But it still could be pretty windy regardless throughout the day tomorrow, but not super windy, I hope. I'm hoping the max wind gust lasts maybe 2 hours or less. So you see, as soon as that low pressure center moves over, the convergence zone should begin to fire up, and it looks like it may start out here over northern King and southern Snohomish counties tomorrow morning. This model goes out to 10 a.m. right now. We can go to the 18Z to see out a little further, but we do have some run-to-run disagreement, unfortunately, which is normal because the HRRR runs hourly, and it tries to correct itself every hour. And unfortunately, as a result of that, it changes things quite a bit from each run. What I mean by that is we go from the 18Z to the 19Z, for example. Actually, let's go out to the 23Z, and then let's backtrack from there. So this is for 6 a.m. tomorrow. And just look at all the dramatic changes when I go back in time here. It's changing the timing of when the low-level cyclone makes its approach into the Puget Sound. It's changing its strength. It's changing the strength of precipitation, the wind speeds that we're expected to see, and so on. Hey there, Mark Skelton. Welcome in. Will Ladysmith miss it? I think this is going to be more of a Western Washington sort of burst of wind, and not necessarily up in the Strait of Georgia area. Once again, I can't stress enough that this is not looking like a significant event whatsoever. I just wanted to go live for a little bit to tell you guys about the possibility for some, maybe some moderate end winds. It's unusual for this time of the year, and that's probably the reason why I'm a little bit concerned about this. Little bit concerned about some tree damage and maybe some very localized power outages, but hopefully not much more than that. It's just, you don't see something like this in June all the time. See, and that's the concern I was talking about. So the low pressure will likely move directly over the central Puget Sound area. Let's go back to the 18Z so we can go a little bit further in time, out to 48 hours. And this shows you the convergence zone should really start ramping up. I'd say sometime between 9 and 11 a.m. tomorrow. I usually give a little bit of leeway on both sides of the forecast, about plus or minus 1 to 2 hours for any deviations. Because normally, sometimes this is about 1 to 2 hours off, either too early or too late. Calling for gusts of 40 kilometers southwest. So about 25 miles per hour. That sounds about right. Shouldn't see anything much more than that, realistically. And so it shows the convergence zone really firing up here across Snohomish County and maybe parts of Island County as we go into the noon hour. And then it shows a pretty potent band of moisture extending all the way into Jefferson County and up across to the Cascades of Chelan County. The air mass coming in is not super cold, so I don't think we have to worry much about like any accumulating snow over the passes or the mountains. A convergence looks like my valley. Yeah, it's pretty close. I think Oso is more towards up here, so you may be a little bit too far north to get the action. It would be more for areas down here for Clinton, for example. Clinton across to maybe Mukilteo, Everett, Snohomish, Monroe, Sultan, Gold Bar, and surrounding areas will probably be under the gun of that convergence zone, with isolated thunderstorms possible within the convergence zone, and a much lesser likelihood, but not zero likelihood, of some thunderstorms outside of this convergence zone area. And then it has the convergence zone hanging on for quite some time into tomorrow afternoon, and then it starts to sag a bit south towards Snoqualmie Pass, and then our moisture runs out. So once we get into Wednesday afternoon, the showers should taper out. We should be on our way towards transitioning into the next heat wave coming up this next weekend. But it's probably going to be a pretty slow process. At the very least, we'll return to our seasonal temperatures between this system and the ridge amplification Saturday. By that, I mean the upper level ridge responsible for our next heat wave is going to be increasing in amplitude or strength pretty quickly on Saturday, and Sunday and Monday are expected to be pretty warm for June standards, even some 90s and maybe some isolated mid-90s possible on Monday. Yeah, TJ, welcome in. Yeah, you can thank Julie for that gifted membership. So, yeah, again, thank you. Shout out Julie Bradford up in Oso for the 5 gifted memberships here on YouTube. Really appreciate that. All right, so let's go look at the NAM for this too. I feel like the NAM usually is a bit more accurate for reflectivity, like for the simulated radar, but not as accurate for the wind. So you see on the NAM here, it shows the steady rain begins to move out of the area by around 7 p.m. and then just turns to showers with some stronger rain bands possible at times throughout the night after sunset. But then this low pressure center moves into the area and moves through the Puget Sound area. And we should hopefully clear out a bit behind that, but again, the winds. And then let's see what it looks like for the convergence zone. Now, it has this convergence zone firing a little bit later than the HRRR over a similar area, but it looks like it's a little bit more southwest to northeast oriented. So it's a bit more south-southwest to north-northeast oriented, unlike the HRRR, which is mainly west to east. And then it has it really starting to take off around 1 p.m. Here across Snohomish and southern Island counties, with even some action possible across northern Kitsap and eastern Jefferson counties as well. Looks like a big warm air mass coming. Yes, that is correct, Mark Skelton. Earlier in the weekend, we'll have that quick transition from more seasonal average temps into much warmer than average temps around the area. Ashley says, it's interesting several models show I should already be seeing some gusts 21 to 31, or 20 to 31, but it is dead still out here. Yeah, again, can't really stress it enough that the forecast models shouldn't be used for like an exact forecast, just to give you an idea of what could occur. The forecasting really comes in the short term, and I like to call it nowcasting, because we get to see the observations in real time and make short-term estimates based off of that real-time data. So the conversion zone isn't going to be exactly what it shows here, so the radar is not going to look exactly like this. The timing and position are usually going to be off a little bit, but we can get an idea that there will be a convergence zone around this area around this time. So I'm basing it more relatively than what we're actually going to see. More of a relative guesstimate at that. So Both the HRRR and the NAM models do show a convergence zone over Snohomish County around 1 p.m. realistically. Anytime really between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. But the NAM isn't as robust on the radar, and that's normally what verifies. Usually the HRRR is a bit too robust and shows the showers being stronger than we normally see them. So I think that the NAM model here gives us a pretty good idea of what we'll see tomorrow afternoon. And this keeps the thunderstorm threats pretty low overall. Because again, the dynamics are nowhere near as favorable as what we saw on Saturday around the area. Yeah, Mark, I would loosely focus on the NAM. I feel like by far the European is probably going to nail this. And I'll show you guys again what I mean by that for anyone who may have missed it earlier. I actually want to show you guys the ensemble members. So one control run and 50 different ensemble members with tweaked starting parameters. I'm going to show you guys the percentiles and the averages here. So we're going to go out to when the gusts are expected to be the strongest. Again, this is the averaging of one control run and 50 different individual ensemble members down into one average forecast here. So this is showing percentiles. So the 10th percentiles on the left and the 90th percentiles on the right. So what that means is the 10th percentile has a 90% chance of happening, while the 90th percentile has only a 10% chance of happening. So the number on the left is what we'll most likely see. The number on the right is what we'll least likely see, but is the ceiling of the event. And the closer that these numbers are to each other, then the more confidence we have in this forecast. So for example, a spread up here in Mount Vernon of 23 to 33 miles per hour, that is a 10 mile per hour spread. That means we have lower confidence than down here in Seattle, for example, which only has a 4 mile per hour difference. So the average of these, again, is 40 miles per hour. As you add these up and then divide by 2, you get 40 miles per hour for an average gust for Seattle, and then you get around 40 miles per hour for the Tacoma area. So pretty good agreement between the ensemble members down here. The ensemble average shows that there's not much deviation between the individual members, which is good. That's what you want to see. That means confidence is relatively high. And I just want to check out a few more things here. So see, like, this is between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. tonight, and we have much more uncertainty down here in Tacoma. In Seattle as well. So Seattle, what this is showing is you have a 90% likelihood of seeing gusts up to 18 miles per hour from 11 p.m. tonight to 5 a.m. tomorrow. And you have a 10% likelihood of seeing gusts up to 38 miles per hour between the same time, 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. tomorrow. So there's a 20 mile per hour spread there, and the average is 28 miles per hour. Down here in Tacoma, the 10th percentile, so again, 90% chance this does happen. Low end of 23 miles per hour, and then a 90th percentile, 10% likelihood of seeing gusts up to 42 miles per hour. Down here with an average of about, I'm going to round this up to 33 miles per hour during this time. So see, quite a bit of uncertainty for the early morning, late night portion of this, but much less uncertainty and more confidence as you go later on into the morning and early afternoon hours tomorrow. But just to talk about what I was saying earlier towards the start of the stream, the European, as we see here, does not line up with what the CAM models, aka the high-res ones, like the HRRR, the NAM, and the experimental Rufus, which we can check that out as well. The RRFS experimental. We have a new run that I have yet to see. This model's not in full operation yet. Again, it's an experimental product, so it's not for precise decision making. It's just to see if it lines up with the other models and see if we have any model-to-model agreement there. I want to check this out real briefly. Oddly enough, this has gusts getting up to 40 miles per hour in Tacoma as soon as 11 p.m. tonight. hoping that's an outlier. And then again, 40-mile-per-hour gusts possible at 3 a.m. tomorrow. And then it has that westerly surge really picking up for Whidbey Island, Port Townsend, and vicinity as soon as 7 a.m. tomorrow. So I'm not sure if I trust this. Again, it's experimental, and it doesn't really line up with what the other models are showing. So again, more model-to-model disagreement. Not what we want to see this soon in the game. Thank you for the weather update, says Cheryl Tudor. Sure thing. What about North Central Washington? Aaron Mansfield is asking. Should not be that big of a deal up there. It's more of a deal for South Central Washington, where there are some wind advisories in effect for tomorrow. Because the tightest pressure gradient is to the south of the low pressure center. And this low pressure center is going to move south of your area. So therefore, it'll keep all the strong winds way down here in North Central Oregon and South Central Washington on the east slopes of the Cascades. So if you're north of this low pressure center, you'll get very little, if any, wind. So you should be safe from any strong winds in North Central Washington over the next 24 hours. I hope the winds don't move a bit further north. Yeah, I think we have pretty good confidence that the low pressure center is going to make landfall somewhere around Grays Harbor County. Really anytime between 10 p.m. tonight and midnight tomorrow morning. I do want to pull up a site with surface observations though. So we're going to get the most recent surface analysis, which I also have not looked at yet. So this is going to be a first time for all of us. I'm going to go look at the high resolution surface analysis, and we're going to examine this. This has approximately a 994 millibar low pressure center. It looks like it's west of Willapa Bay right now, probably 100 to 150 miles. You see we have a long cold front extending to the south and then a warm front extending off to the east, and it becomes a stationary frontal boundary here. Not much has changed from the previous map. It doesn't look like it has weakened or strengthened, because you see it was also about a 994 millibar low. This was the 18Z analysis, so this was 11 a.m. And then this is the 2 p.m. analysis, and it runs every 3 hours. So the next one should be coming in the next hour to hour and a half. The 5 p.m. analysis should be initializing here pretty soon, and we should be able to see that sometime in the next, again, hour to hour and a half. But let's go look in the past. So earlier today and late last night. So this is what it looked like at 8 p.m. last night. And then 11 p.m. last night. You can see the low pressure center coming together. This is cyclogenesis, the process of the formation of a mid-latitude cyclone. We have the occluded front right here, and then the cold front extending off to the west, and then the warm front extending off to the south. And then we go to 2 a.m. this morning. We have a bit more of a bent back occlusion. Cold front and warm front getting a bit more organized, and our low pressure center has decreased to 1001 millibars. We go to 5 a.m. this morning, and then this is coincidentally a buoy popped up right underneath the low pressure center, I noticed. But this has an approximate low pressure center of 996.7 millibars, which shows additional strengthening of about 4 to 5 millibars over a 3-hour period. And then we go another 3 hours in the future. This is, I think I went 5 a.m. this morning and then 8 a.m. this morning. And this is when it hit its peak strength. 992.4 millibars from the nearest buoy down here. And then, yeah, this is the 11 a.m. decreased, or well, the pressure increased to 994 millibars, which shows some slight weakening, and then it holds its pressure steady at around 994 millibars here. So looks like it's about maybe 150 to 200 miles west of the coast right now, and is on track to make landfall somewhere around Grays Harbor County. But it should start weakening again rapidly on approach. So we'll have to wait for the next surface observation to come in before we make that assumption. See what it looks like on meso analysis too. This uses a different model guidance. And unfortunately, I can't zoom in much on this, but it does show approximately a 998 millibar low due west of, looks like, Willapa Bay and the Grays Harbor Bar. But it's a pretty broad area of low pressure, and there's not much of a tight gradient below it. So that's why I think this will be more of a weak low end wind event, and not much to talk about outside of maybe some isolated 40 mile per hour wind gusts. Let's see here. We have had over 30 mile per hour winds, is why I was asking. Okay. Yeah, it probably shouldn't be much more than that. I see this being more of an issue for areas south of I-90 than north of I-90. I want to review again the European guidance and see if it agrees with that. Yeah, right now I can see why it's windy up there. It should really begin to rapidly decrease as we go into early tomorrow morning. And then maybe it'll pick up again as we go into the afternoon time. Yeah, so this is where the model disagreement comes in, because it does show some strong winds for parts of Okanagan, northern Chelan, and northern Douglas counties tomorrow afternoon. But if we go, I want to check to see, so the new 0Z HER is initializing right now. So that should be done shortly, and then we'll have a more up-to-date expectation of what to look at. I want to go look at the 18Z real quick. Okay, so 18Z HER does show some stronger winds for the Okanagan Highlands area. I believe this is because it brings the low pressure center a bit farther north than some of the other models, which would bring it into your area. It still has some of the strongest winds being down here in eastern Kittitas County, near the gorge, where we could have some wind gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour at times. This would be at around 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then the NAM, wait for that to show up real quick. Yeah, so you'll have to watch the higher terrains carefully and some areas downstream of it. So if you're closer to the Cascade Crest up here in north central Washington, you'll likely have stronger winds than you would as you're heading east towards, say, Ferry and Lincoln counties, for example. It should be relatively short-lived, I would hope. I want to see so far what the 0Z HER is showing, because this should go out to early tomorrow morning, which it does. I want to see if there's any noticeable downtrends from the last run so far, which there is a little bit. See, we added a mile per hour for Seattle, but we subtracted a mile per hour from Tacoma. So some pretty small, minuscule changes to the forecast. It doesn't really change the speed or track of the system, which is good. You want to see this model run-to-run agreement. Let's see what it shows for 4 a.m. tomorrow. It does show a little bit of an uptrend for the Tacoma area from the 23Z run to the 0Z run. See, we go up from 29 to 33 miles per hour possible at 4 a.m. tomorrow. We have a few new frames coming out. So we're currently at 12 frames, so this goes out to 5 a.m. And this is the forecast that it shows for around Washington State. It does show some 30 to 35 mile per hour gusts possible along the Strait of Juan de Fuca, downstream into Whidbey Island, Camino Island, and possibly some areas directly along the Possession Sound here in Snohomish County. So these ones will be out of the west up here. These ones will likely be out of the southwest. Let's just verify wind direction real quick, which it does line up. So the closer to the coast you are, the more westerly your winds will be, but the more inland you are, the more southwesterly they'll be. And maybe some northwesterlies coming out of the strait too, but these aren't looking overly impressive at the moment. Been a while since I checked comments, so I'm going to go back and refresh real quick. There's Leon again saying hello from Washington. Interesting low coming in. My Davis station is at 0.23 inches and raining, which is nice with our dry conditions. Yes, I will take as much moisture as we can get before the summer, because this summer is not looking great for drought and wildfire conditions, unfortunately. Do I have my flashlight ready in Ladysmith? I'd really have your flashlight ready no matter what. I would keep a first aid kit, a spare flashlight, and a fully charged phone, no matter what, storm or no storm, just in case, because you never know what could happen. You can never be too safe. Thunder here in Friday Harbor, San Juan Island. Was that on Saturday or was that today? Haven't heard any additional thunder reports. I want to make sure, because it's been a while since we checked radar. So, yeah, this is the most recent radar. So the steady precipitation should be coming to an end shortly for the Puget Sound area. Yeah, the precipitation is all stratiform, and that just means it's evenly dispersed. There's no individual storm cells or any stronger showers embedded within this. It's mostly all the same level of precipitation. You know, sure, you see some orange spots in here, but it's evenly dispersed. It's not showing these individual little spikes in reflectivity. So the precipitation is stratiform for the most part. So you do see some stronger areas of precip here off the coast. Some over the Hoh Indian Reservation, Nia Bay area, Clallam Bay, Quileute, La Push, potentially. And yeah, you can clearly see where the bent back occlusion is here, where the precipitation is moving more northeast to southwest here, and more southwest to northeast down here. So this cyclonic flow right here. All the precipitation is moving about the low pressure center counterclockwise. And so, yeah, again, the steady precipitation should be coming to an end shortly here for the Puget Sound area. Maybe another second lower end band of precipitation coming through, but then after that, it should really start to clear up. And then we may have some wind behind that, depending on which model proves to be victorious. So that's just a current look at radar right now. Let's go look at Eastern Washington for the heck of it. Do have some precipitation over Eastern Washington, some very beneficial precipitation to hopefully put a dent in those short-term drought conditions. When it comes to long-term, unfortunately, I wish I had better news for you, but I don't. With a lot of the snowpack over the Cascades already melted out. Let's see if I can pull up the current snow water equivalent right now. This should be the Washington Snowtel. Let me see if I can pull that site up real fast. Okay, yeah, here's one example. So looking at the Washington Snowtel, so this is showing snow water equivalent over a 30-year average. So from 1991 to 2020, this is what's comparing it to right now, is to that 30-year average. So everything in the red is below 50% average snowpack for this time of the year. Anything in the orange is 50 to 69%. You see we have a couple spots up here in the North Cascades which are above 50, between 50 to 70%, but the rest of it is below 50%. And even a lot of spots here which are completely melted out already, which is not good. See, Martin Ridge, for example, all melted out well ahead of time. The green line you guys see here, I don't know how well you guys can see it on the stream, but the green line is where we should be effectively. But that's not looking like the case. Even down here in the Puget Sound and Olympic watersheds, the Olympics completely melted out. Much of the central Puget Sound area up here, the Central Cascades, melted out. Even a lot of the southern Cascades are below 20% or all the way down to 0. Yeah, I mean, it's just... I wish I had better news for the summer, but the situation's looking pretty dire overall. Let's see. I haven't really experimented much with this site, but let's go look at, yeah, snow water equivalent plots. And I want to see if I can pull up a specific watershed. Just an overall area. Yeah, sure thing. Gotta go charge the phone. Sounds good, Julie. Hopefully we see you again soon. I think maybe it's under water supply. Washington, forecast point. Puget Sound. Let's do the Cedar River at Cedar Falls. And let's see if we can generate a graph here. I'll be honest, I wish I knew what I was looking at, but I don't. So we're gonna try a different. Okay, this is what I wanted to look at right here. Pacific Northwest snow water equivalent plot. So the Pacific Northwest region, we're currently in the 11th percentile here, which is not great. We are 4% of the median peak, which is right up here. And we are 25% of median overall, which is the solid green line right down there. The black line is where we're at right now, the very end of the black line. And we're right, looks like right between the red and the yellow, which is not what you want to see. So we're likely projected to melt out all of our snowpack before July. Probably mid-June to late June at the latest. So just the fact that this black line has been in the red for so long is not what you want to see for the summertime. Hoping sometime soon I get a new surface analysis to see exactly how strong and where this low pressure system is. We can, of course, again, approximate this on visible satellite, and it looks like the low pressure center is somewhere due west of Long Beach, probably 100 miles or so. I can approximate this as well on radar scope. Low pressure center is close enough to the radar site to be able to approximate how far it is from the coast. It looks like it's probably just under 100 miles. And so it's moving pretty slow. So there'll probably be anywhere in the next 3 to 4 hours at least before this thing makes landfall along the coast. Had a question I missed earlier. Hopefully you're still watching, Valerie Donovan. Sorry if I missed you. What does the wind look like for this area, 9 a.m. to noon, Chimacum area? I think this is up here, right? Or is it? Yeah, let me go check on that a little closer. I think it's up near Port Ludlow, right? Or am I firing a blank on that? I think I might be firing a blank. Hang tight with me, folks. Yeah, isn't it right up here? Because I see Chimacum Creek. I think it might be up here. I'm probably just not seeing it. But if you're talking about the Port Townsend, the Port Hadlock area, I'd be a little more concerned if you're north of Port Townsend, but I think you should be okay from any strong wind down here in the Port Hadlock assuming this is Chimicum area down here, because you've got the Olympics helping you out. If the wind stretches around the Olympics and dips a bit more out of the northwest towards the southeast, then you'd likely get some of these stronger winds down here. Okay, good to see you are on here still. Sorry I missed your question earlier. So yeah, again, let's stop this animation here. Go look at mid-level water vapor. This shows you, see, a lot of moisture coming in, wrapping around this, and then a nice little dry slot down here on the southern end of this. Very textbook mid-latitude cyclone that we don't see often during this time of the year. When we look at long wave infrared, and you can see these much cooler and larger cloud tops up here, and then the much drier moisture wrapping around the south side of this cyclone right here. And what's cool is you can see it in true color, a true color as well. I'm going to zoom in on this satellite a bit. And you can clearly see the bent back occlusion in the area of low pressure west of Willapa Bay right now. It's anywhere between 80 to 100 miles west and moving off towards the east-northeast a bit. So it's projected to make landfall somewhere, it looks like, between southern Grays Harbor County and central Grays Harbor County, maybe northern Pacific County if it hooks south a little bit at the last minute. Yeah, so I guess let's go review the model data again, because I do have the rest of this model run ready. And I do see a bit of a downtrend compared to the last model run for the Tacoma area. It's the same as the 18Z, which is good. The 23Z, it's a pretty significant downtrend. We went from 45 miles per hour down to about 37, 38 miles per hour, which is good. You don't want to see anything over 40 when the trees are fully leaved. That would be around 7 a.m. So again, a reminder, it still does show some possible 40 mile per hour gusts for Tacoma southward here. But due to winds likely coming out of the southwest, most of the I-5 corridor from Olympia south to Longview should be sheltered from any stronger wind. You may still feel the weaker wind, but nothing strong. Either way, no one should be seeing any super strong wind tomorrow. So we go farther into time. You do see around 6 a.m. tomorrow, your area could get some wind gusts in the 35 to maybe 40 mile per hour range out of the west or the west-northwest direction. So do be advised of that. But areas down here in the Central Sound, after the back end of that low pressure center moves through, you should be mostly wind shadowed for the rest of the day until you get to later on in the afternoon. And then that convergence zone area should begin to push north. But areas like SeaTac up through Seattle, maybe Everett, will probably get a break in the wind early in the morning, and then that pushes a bit farther to the north. This does, however, show at around 11 a.m. the Central Sound could get some strong wind gusts as well. This is showing around 43 to 45 miles per hour for the immediate Seattle vicinity and Elliott Bay and the surrounding Puget Sound. So we'll have to watch that closely as well. That, I believe, this is frame 18. Yeah, so we can see it on the last one. Yeah. It's a little bit of an uptrend. Unfortunately, it doesn't show that frame on the last model run, but if we go back to 6 model runs ago to the last full model run, it does increase by 7 miles per hour from 36 to 43 miles per hour. Ashley says, ugh, we still have 2 trees to take down. Please, nothing over 40. Yeah, I think anything over 40, really 40 in general, is probably going to be a reach for this. So again, I have to keep clarifying this for anyone new joining in. This isn't looking major by any means. it's really only something to talk about because of the time of the year and the fact that we have full foliage already on trees. You don't really see wind gusts above 35 miles per hour as we're going into summer. The only time I've seen that was back in August of 2015 when we had that big windstorm. A huge early season windstorm at the end of that summer. That's the only time I've seen anything like this during this time frame. A few new people hopping on Facebook. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a while since we've done any sort of call sign. So, hello everyone. This is Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch on Facebook and YouTube, currently live streaming right now. Talking about more of a lower end scenario. Nothing to run home about. It's likely going to be windy later tonight and tomorrow morning. With the potential for a convergence zone to form late tomorrow morning, early tomorrow afternoon over Snohomish County, and maybe parts of Island, Jefferson, Kitsap, and possibly even northern King County as well, with an isolated thunderstorm chance. And that reminds me, I need to show you guys the SPC forecast. They've changed this a little bit in the past couple of updates. But at one point, this did have all of Washington and most of Oregon in the general thunderstorm risk, but it looks like they refined it to mainly just include most of the North Sound, the Northwest Interior, and the Central and Northern Cascades. So I feel like this is a much better forecast than what we were seeing before, because if anyone sees really any thunderstorms tomorrow, it's most likely going to be in this convergence zone, right in this general area right here. That's going to be the best shot right there. So I do agree with this forecast. I do want to pull up the Seattle National Weather Service site as well. Go over some current alerts in effect for the area. Right now, it's only marine alerts. You see here, it might be a little hard to see the map, but we do have gale warnings in effect for the eastern central Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Salish Sea, and small craft advisories in effect for the rest of the inland and coastal waters. Let's go to forecast graphics real quick. And want to look at the thunderstorm probabilities. And these are new and up to date. So this is using the National Blend of Models, which is basically an ensemble of all of the forecast models that the NWS has access to. All of the high-res ones, all the deterministics, all the ensembles, and so on. And it combines it in the one average. So right now it's saying the max thunderstorm probabilities for tomorrow are likely going to be anywhere between 20 to 25% in the convergence zone area and below 20% for the rest of us. Really anywhere in the white here has about 10 to 20%. Anywhere in the pink has 20 to 25. And this dark pink right here is pushing 25 to 30. So the National Blend of Models is picking up on this convergence zone activity as well. And one thing I want to bring up too is the heat risk as well. Heat risk should be up to date, and they did update this. So as we go out to day 6, this is valid for Saturday. So once we go into tomorrow, we'll be able to see Sunday. And Sunday, we may have a chance for a major heat risk for some of these areas. Again, especially south and west of Olympia, south of the Olympics here too. Patrick Ross says, looks like we'll have winds in the mid-30s in Bremerton. That is enough to cause some power outages, but I wouldn't say considerable. Power outages should hopefully be pretty isolated. So, day 1 heat risk, of course, there's nothing. This is for today. Day 2, day 3, Wednesday will be the transition day. This is when we'll begin to see some 70s pop up back in the forecast. And 70-degree temperatures associates with a minor heat risk or a level 1 out of 5, as shown here. Actually, this is a level 2 out of 5 because it goes 1, which is no heat risk, 2 is minor, 3 is moderate, 4 is major, 5 is extreme. So this is a level 2 out of 5 heat risk for areas Seattle southward to Olympia along the I-5 corridor on Wednesday, and up through Shelton and down towards Elma and Montesano areas. So that is for Wednesday. Thursday becomes a bit more widespread. We'll likely see 70s around much of western Washington. The interior area, including Kitsap County, parts of Island County, and some isolated areas up in the foothills as well. And then as we go into Friday, becomes much more widespread and includes much, if not all, of the western Washington lowlands, not along the immediate coastline. And then, of course, day 6, Saturday, we introduce the moderate heat risk, which is above 80 degrees and around 90 degrees for your usual warm spots down here south of Tacoma. So this includes areas like Elma, Montesano, McCleary, Shelton, Olympia, Chehalis, Centralia, Grand Mound area, for example, all the way down into the Willapa Hills and the Black Hills area as well. Then some isolated moderate heat risks as well up in the river valleys and the Forks area as well. So that is the forecast for Saturday. Again, this is based on the NWS's national blend of models. So high-res forecasts will likely show different. This is just a preliminary estimation based on what the National Weather Service is seeing. So go look at max temperatures as well. So Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. is showing temperatures going back to the 70s, maybe some mid-70s around these minor heat risk areas down here. And then we start to see some 80s pop up in the forecast on Friday, and likely widespread 80s already by Saturday. Sunday, we could see 90 as soon as Sunday around parts of the lowlands here. Preliminarily south and west of Seattle, with even a shot at some mid-90s, and potentially in the unlikely shot that we do have some 100s down here west of Olympia and east of the coast. Like this down here, this is a 100-degree contour right down there. And it has that for both Sunday afternoon and Monday afternoon. And Monday afternoon, it has a lot of lower to mid-90s south and west of Seattle. And also some 90s away from the water here in the northwest interior and across the Stillaguamish, Skagit, and Snoqualmie river valleys, and the Skykomish too. So the river valleys away from the water could have some hazardous temperatures Sunday and Monday, especially for those sensitive to heat illnesses. So if you have an AC and you haven't already broken it out, I would like you to consider breaking it out by Saturday at the latest. You'll most likely need it for Sunday and Monday, depending on how heat tolerant you are. Just waiting for some new frames to come in here. Looks like we'll get some new satellite frames here in the next couple of minutes. This is as of 6:21 p.m. showing the low pressure center now almost due west of the Columbia River bar. It may be trying to pull a bit to the south a little bit. It's a little hard to tell here on satellite imagery, but once the new surface analysis comes in, which should be very soon, we'll be able to see its exact position. As of hang on. As of 5 p.m. Which we don't have a new one on that yet. Yeah, see, meso analysis is also unchanged, so. Yeah, so the center of low pressure is likely somewhere west of Willapa Bay and the Columbia River bar here. We go and turn on pressure contours. According to the European forecast, this is the approximate area of low pressure here, and it's approximately 997 millibars, according to the European forecast model. Yeah, there's our low pressure. This, we play an hour loop of this. Should be showing it pulling a tad bit south of east. Let's speed this up a bit. It's a little stuttery, unfortunately, but it's some of the best imagery that we're going to get at the moment. So, yeah, this shows it moving almost due east, possibly a few degrees south of east, as it makes its approach to the coastline. TJ says, I'm not looking forward to 90s here in West Olympia. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to 90s here in Tacoma either. Gonna have to break out the air conditioning here very soon and get it set up. Ruth is in Bremerton, ready to build a fire mid-June, and I'm tired of being cold. Don't worry, because June gloom is going to be a thing of the past here in the next couple of days. Just have to get through today, tomorrow, and a little bit of Wednesday, and then we really start to turn up the jets on temperatures. So, relief is in sight. Sooner than you think. Didn't realize I had the hazards viewer still open. And this is incredibly out of date, so we're going to refresh that. So yeah, so we do have some wind advisories here. This is for the Kittitas Valley down here, Ellensburg, all the way over to the Gorge. Wind advisory from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow. As we could have gusts to 50 miles per hour out of the west, with sustained winds 25 to 35 miles per hour. And down here, 2 a.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow, so could have strong wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour beginning as soon as 2 a.m. tomorrow. This is for the lower Columbia River Gorge down here. This includes parts of Klickitat and Yakima counties. And then we have a very large wind advisory as well for a good portion of northern Oregon along the Columbia River. And same hazards expected. These were all issued by the same forecast office in Pendleton. So, once again, right now, only gale warnings in effect for the Salish Sea and the eastern and central Strait of Juan de Fuca from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow. So, gusts up to 40 knots, that is 46 miles per hour. So you multiply the numbers by 1.15 to convert from knots to miles per hour. So west winds approximately 23 to 35 miles per hour with gusts up to 46 at times from 5 a.m. tomorrow to 11 p.m. tomorrow. Then for the Puget Sound, Hood Canal, and other inland waters, a small craft advisory is in effect from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow. This has winds out of the southwest 15 to 25 knots. Which is about 20 to 30 miles per hour or so, a little bit less, with gusts to 30 knots, which is about 35 miles per hour. So pretty on par for what most of the forecasts are showing. This is for the Puget Sound and Hood Canal from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. So small craft and mariners out at sea, do be advised that conditions could get a bit blustery, but not quite gale force winds throughout the day tomorrow, as this pressure system makes, this low pressure system makes landfall. TJ says LOL. Patrick says, I love June gloom, not looking forward to what is likely shaping up to be a horrifically hot summer. I agree. I will take as much moisture as we can get right now before we enter the big dry and the big hot this summer. I also have a flood warning for snowmelt that has been in effect for a long time and remains in effect until further notice. So this is for snowpack runoff coming off the North Cascades into the Stehegan River and Lake Chelan. So until further notice. Just because of the very warm temperatures aloft up towards the mountains that resulting in rapid snowpack. A lot of the area in which has already completely melted off their snowpack, unfortunately. go look at some rain observations. So let's look at precipitation and let's do 24-hour precip. Let's look at all stations here and check out some of these contrasts too. See much less precipitation up here in the North Sound and Northwest Interior compared to down here in the Central Sound. The South Sound, the Southwest Interior, and the coast, that's an obvious error. Ignore that. That's a glitch. But up here in the North Sound, a lot of areas haven't recorded any precipitation so far today. And you go down here into the Hood Canal area, Kitsap Peninsula, and parts of the Central and South Sound here, you have at least a 1/4 inch on the day. Some areas even already pushing 3/4 of an inch. This station down here in Brennan actually is at 3/4 of an inch in the last 24 hours. Then down here in Olympia, around a 1/2 inch or so. And then pushing 3/4 of an inch in the Southwest Interior. So pretty decent rainfall for June, I'll say. I will take as much as we can get before the drought and the wildfires really start up. That reminds me too, let's look at the drought monitor as well. So I'm going to pull up the Washington State drought monitor. And so this is as of June 2nd at 8 a.m. Map was released on June 4th, but the data is valid through June 2nd. And it does show parts of the Puget Sound and Olympic Peninsula are abnormally dry. There is currently no drought west of the Cascades. Do have a moderate drought and even some severe drought for portions of eastern Washington, primarily the northern Blue Mountain region and northeast Washington up here in Okanagan and Ferry counties. Otherwise, for western Washington, only parts of Clallam, Jefferson, Mason, Kitsap, King, and Pierce counties have abnormally dry conditions, as well as portions of Lewis, Skamania, Cowlitz, and Clark counties. The general Puget Sound area outside of Seattle, Vashon Island, and parts of Kitsap and Pierce counties are currently doing okay for drought conditions right now. But that's not the drought forecast. And I can pull up the drought forecast as well. Believe it's under outlooks, which it is. So, valid for June. We're doing pretty good for June. We're not expected to have any drought develop in June. However, as we go into July and August, drought development is once again likely for western Washington. The drought is expected to persist for much of Oregon, eastern Washington, and Idaho as well. Wish I had better news for you guys on that front, but unfortunately I don't. So let's see, Crystal Polensky was asking Enumclaw. I'm guessing you're talking about the wind? Let's go look at some wind gusts right now, too. See, pretty anemic in the wind department. It looks like we have recently recorded a wind gust of 44 miles per hour at Cape Disappointment, which means the wind is kicking up along the coast. 40 miles per hour down here in Tillamook County. In max wind gusts so far. Up here in elevation at Huckleberry Ridge, we have a max of 56, gusted to 61 here at Camp Muir, Mount Rainier National Park. Gusted to 50 out here near Garibaldi, and then 44 at the Clatsop Spit and 44 at Cape Disappointment. And 38 out here at the Cape Elizabeth station. And outside of that, not much to talk about so far. So, Enumclaw area, let's go check out the model runs again. I think the European should be running. Okay, no, never mind. I was late on that. But let's go check the high resolution models real quick. Let's zoom into the state level. Load up full screen, and Enumclaw is going to be right about there. So let's watch this area closely. This is the 11 p.m., 12 a.m. You could notice the winds pick up around the area, and then they'll remain likely in the 30 mile per hour range, maybe even a slight 40 mile per hour gust possible around 4 a.m. or so. But it's expected to remain windy around much of the area through most of the day tomorrow, but the peak winds should be anytime between midnight and daybreak, I'd say. So between midnight and 6 a.m. realistically. Ruth says, no argument there, but a little bit warmer would be nice. Ruth also said, I just spent the weekend in the seaside, very windy off the ocean. Yep, around here and around the ocean, the marine push just becomes a way of life. Let's go see what the National Blend of Models shows for temperatures around the area. I think we have a new run of this that I haven't looked at yet. So these would be max temperatures for tomorrow. And as you guys can see, even the areas away from the water have trouble breaking 60. We may not even break 60 again tomorrow because of that upper level trough over our area bringing much cooler conditions than normal. And then these would be the highs for Thursday. No, hang on, I skipped Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesday, we start to get back into the 60s. Some mid 60s likely away from the water. Thursday, we start to ramp things up and we likely get back into the 70s for much of us. Some mid and upper 70s possible here in the southwest interior. Friday, we really start to turn it up and we could break out some 80s here away from the water. Primarily, again, south and west of Olympia could have some isolated 80s on Friday. Saturday, starting to talk 90s already away from the water here. Likely some mid to upper 70s, even some lower 80s along the water, Puget Sound area, the coast, and likely some 80s here in the foothills, some of the river valleys up here, and the Fraser River Valley, for example. Down here in the southwest interior, we could be pushing 90, and likely possibly breaking 90 west of Capitol Peak too, over eastern Grays Harbor, southern Mason counties. And then just wait. It gets even better. You see all this white? This is pushing 100 degrees already on Sunday for some of these areas away from the water. Even areas along the water will likely not get a break from 80-degree temps. And then a good chance that areas in the foothills and southwest interior exceed 90 degrees, with some hundreds even possible down here near Centralia, all the way down into Longview as well. And the Willamette River Valley could see some hundreds on Sunday too. And yeah, Monday, even warmer. Well, it depends on where you're at exactly. Likely be even warmer along the water on Monday, but around the same, if not a little bit more tame for inland areas. As you see, we dropped off from 100 degrees here down to about 97. But the Willamette River Valley is still baking with hundreds possible in the Portland area. So, not what you want to see with this. Luckily, Tuesday we begin to cool off quite a bit. And then Wednesday, some areas may not break 70 degrees. So this goes out to 11 a.m. on Thursday, a whopping 239 hours. Maybe that boost is wild. Yes, I agree. Not going to be anything like the heat dome we had about 5 years ago. It shouldn't be even close. Let's go see what we're looking at for precipitation totals. We're going to go all the way out to the end of the model, 10 days. And see, it shows we're likely going to get around an inch of precipitation along the coast. Potentially a lot more under this convergence zone. And most of this will be occurring in just the next 48 hours. Because we should be dry after Wednesday afternoon. We maybe a little bit more shower activity as we go out through the following week. This is all the way out 10 days. So take anything past like 4 days with a grain of salt. You see a lot of this precipitation. Look at this convergence zone precipitation up here. Look how quickly this piles up on Tuesday. Tuesday morning to Tuesday afternoon, we go from about 2 inches total up to pushing 4 inches total. With Everett seeing about 1.25 inches of precipitation. Mount Vernon area north, quite a bit less. You guys see the rain shadow is across the Sequim, Port Townsend area, Diamond Point area as well. Parts of Whidbey Island could be in the rain shadow. And down here, Tacoma, about 3/4 of an inch, a little bit more for Seattle possible. And then anywhere in the purple again, anywhere in the purple could see rainfall amounts upwards of an inch or greater. So purple is an inch, red is 2 inches. And once you start seeing the lighter red, the sort of orangish color here, that is pushing 4 inches of precipitation. Sorry guys, I haven't been really good about drinking my water today. All right. Comments one more time. Zach is asking, what time is the wind supposed to hit for Coopville? For you, it should be tomorrow morning around the time the sun rises. It could be as early as 4 a.m. and as late as 8 or 9 in the morning. And it'll likely last a few hours, so just be prepared for some wind out of the west, starting as soon as the sun comes up tomorrow. Or really anywhere downstream of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. That heat dome 5 years ago was awful. I was working Moto America at the Ridge Motorsports Park in Shelton. Had to be hauled off my turn station in an ambulance. That's crazy. Yeah, that June 2021 heat dome was the reason I went with air conditioning from that point on. I was able to tolerate all the summers without air conditioning up until that point. And after that, I was like, nope, I'm getting air conditioning. To heck with this. And it was a very, very worthy investment. I still have to install it here at the new place, but once it's in, it should be easy money for the rest of the summer. One cool thing we can look at too here is on the 6-hour thunder probabilities. And again, this is derived from an ensemble of pretty much every weather model there is. So this is showing between 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. tomorrow. Have about a 15% chance of thunder for parts of Pierce and King counties. And that chance increases tomorrow afternoon to about 25% for central Snohomish County under that convergence zone. But I feel like for the rest of the area, it may be a bit too generous on that. One thing I didn't check on the HRRR when we were there was reflectivity. And we have a new NAM running as well. So that's good. So HRRR is finished. The NAM is running and the Rufus should be right behind it. So we'll have access to all of our high-res models here very shortly. All of the new 0Z runs. Okay, so this is what it shows for total precipitation on the HRRR through midnight Wednesday. You see it shows much more than the National Blend of models. Even though this is technically a slightly lower resolution. The National Blend of Models has a 2.5 kilometer resolution, while the HRRR has a 3 kilometer resolution. So it doesn't do as well with terrain exaggeration, but we can still get a pretty good idea that we'll likely see. Hang on, my cursor's off on this. I was like, hang on, something's wrong. I'm going to reset this real quick. There we go. That's much more believable. I was like, hang on, that's not 2.1 inch. It's not like 2.5 inches if that's 2.1. No, so this is showing much less precipitation along the coast, more precipitation over the Olympic crest. And this may be overdoing it like a lot, but this is showing almost 6 inches of precipitation under that conversion zone through midnight Wednesday. I'm hoping that number is wrong. It's showing over 2 inches for Everett too. I think the HRRR is overdoing this, so I'm going to take this one with a grain of salt. Hey there, Jordan Corbell, welcome in. National Weather Service is saying winds could gust as high as 20 tomorrow for Silver Day. That's based off, again, the national blend of models, which we go and look at wind here on the NBM. That's exactly what it's showing. So this, again, is derived from the national blend of models, so it usually underdoes what we typically see during wind events, even if they're lower end like this one. You see, the NBM shows wind gusts of 25 to 30 for much of the central Puget Sound area, showing around 25 to 30 for Tacoma, 25 to 30 for Enumclaw, 20 to 25 for Seattle, and this would likely translate up towards the Silverdale area too. You notice it does also show around the 45 mile per hour average for parts of the Salish Sea and Strait of Juan de Fuca. This is again between tomorrow, 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. Wednesday. So it's about a 24-hour stretch. You see the day one shows very similar too. The day one would be from now through tomorrow afternoon around 4 p.m. So that's what that shows. Sarah says, we used to call these windstorms back in the day. I wouldn't consider this a windstorm. This is this has a low ceiling and a much lower floor. This would hardly even be considered a windstorm in the fall and winter. Just really the only reason I have some concern about it is just because the time of the year. This is very late in the season to have even a mid-latitude cyclone that doesn't look super impressive like this one. You just don't see that in June too often. But as you guys can see, the center of low pressure here, this cyclonic counterclockwise spin, is getting closer to the coast with every scan. So you can see it here as well on this satellite. It's going to play an animation of this and watch as this center of low pressure moves in closer. Looks like it's already bringing the cold front along the Oregon coast and the South Washington coast. So we should have the winds pick up there pretty steadily over the next couple of hours. So yeah, that's that. I wonder if our new surface analysis is ready yet, which it is. We got quite a bit going on here. So looks like our center of low pressure has weakened to about 996 millibars. So we dropped another 2 millibars over the last 3 hours. We want to see this weaken before it moves on the coast, and it looks like we're on track to do just that. Appears we now have a very large occluded front sagging to the south, and then a cold front off to the west, and a warm front off to the south. There's a nearby buoy almost directly under the center of low pressure that is reading about 996.6 millibars, with winds out of the southwest. Yeah, this is just what we're seeing around the country. Surface analysis. Might be a little easier to see if we switch it to terrain so you don't have all of these color contours everywhere. Yeah, central pressure can be rounded to around 996 millibars, so we are seeing this weaken, thankfully. And the pressure gradient is substantially less on the south side of this. So that is good news. Reflect the Sun says it was 121 degrees Fahrenheit in that heat dome. Fire was so intense they reported upwards of 700,000 lightning strikes. 100,000 of them hit the ground. So 700,000 lightning flashes, and 100,000 of them were strikes. It was at Lake Limerick and Shelton during that heat dome, and the high was 116. Craziness. Might be able to pull up some previous forecast data here as well. I've only messed around with the weather.gov site so much. You can find your forecast discussions here, and you can find all of your weather stats. So yeah, see here we have the monthly forecast summary and showing trends. And here on Sunday, June 28th, 2026, the record high was 108 degrees Fahrenheit set in 2021, and that is the all-time record high set at SeaTac Airport. So this is showing that on June 2nd, the observed high was 86 degrees Fahrenheit. A record high was 94, set in 1970. The normal high is only 69. And see, that 86 is lit up in red. We even had a low here of 47, which the normal low is 52 degrees for June 7th, but we had an observed low of 47. So this means we had an above average temperature recording and we had a below average temperature recording down here. But the rest of them are well within the average, which the normal temperature range is shown in the black contour here. Daily precipitation, we'll have to wait till probably tomorrow to get a reading on this, but I expect to see a pretty good bump on this. However, we're well below the records and we're not doing so hot so far on precipitation to kick off this June, at least at SeaTac. Sure thing, TJ. Yeah, Facebook viewership fell off a cliff. Was expecting that. YouTube, we still have about 25 of you guys watching, so thank you guys for bearing with me. So far, the average temperature is 60.9 degrees Fahrenheit for the month. It says this is the 31st highest, and we are 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal so far for the temperature anomalies. Precipitation, this is where we take a big hit. Only 0.05 inches of measurable precipitation so far, not counting today. This is the 23rd lowest overall, and we are 0.4 inches below normal so far on the month, which is not good. There were a couple other days where we recorded a trace, but it doesn't count as measurable precipitation. Yeah, you see that big 86 right there. I believe this stands for, departure from normal. Okay. So that day, our departure from normal was a whopping 11 degrees. And then for yesterday, our departure from normal was -5 degrees. So quite a swing there. You can see where we had the ridging and then when the trough swung in, when we brought in that cooler air mass. So yeah, all of this data is publicly accessible on weather.gov. All of it. And there's so many options too. For example, you can see all of the temperature forecast maps as well. And you guys see we're literally off the charts for the West Coast and most of the Pacific Northwest. This is below because the ridging over the West Coast is going to amplify an upper level trough over the Great Plains and Midwest, which could bring a severe weather risk as well with that. Because it's like the swing of a pendulum. So you oscillate back and forth between ridges and troughs. And so the jet stream is going to be north of the area on the West Coast, and then it sinks south. And then goes back up north over the East Coast. And so this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from June 14th to June 18th, courtesy of the Climate Prediction Center. Then the 8 to 14 day outlook, not much better, but a little bit less. This is for the 16th to the 22nd. Still well above average temperatures. It looks like we're pushing anywhere between 60 to 80% above average for that time period. 6 to 10 day precipitation, looking at below. And 8 to 14 day precipitation, luckily just leaning below, but areas east of the Cascades should be near normal for this time of the year, for what it's worth. And then monthly outlook discussions. Let's go to the interactive maps. This is what it looks like for June. This was issued on May 31st, and it looks like we're going to be anywhere between leaning above to likely above. We're going to be around 50% above average according to the May climate prediction. But I think we'll follow back on that at the end of the month and see how well that held up. And then slightly below average monthly precipitation for that as well. So nothing too terrible. Although, we are now in a weak El Nino and expected to get up towards a strong El Nino by the time we get into late summer. And that could have some costly ramifications for our drought and wildfire outlook this summer, too. Just an early heads up on that. And in case you guys missed it earlier, drought development is likely between June 1st and August 31st for Western Washington, all of it. But we currently do not have any drought. However, our snowpack is pretty much next to gone, as seen on the SnowTel map here. This is also publicly accessible information. You guys want to go search this up. The missile analysis is showing that low pressure area around 996 millibars off the coast. And yeah, it brings that system, looks like it makes landfall somewhere around Central or North Grays Harbor County at around 10 or 11 p.m. tonight. And then it does have a little bit of that pressure gradient on the south side still. I think this is mainly using the RAP model, the RAP. It's a very specific model set. Let's see how much we have on the NAM so far. We're within range on the NAM, so we can check out the new 0Z. See what we're looking at for wind gusts. Thought we were done with them until the middle of October. You're not the first one to mention that, I will admit. Hey, the NAM has a downtrend too. That is good. Let's go compare it to what the 18Z was showing. 18Z was showing 45 mile per hour gusts in the South Sound around 1 a.m. The 0Z cuts it down to 39. Along the coast, around the same, but the wind field's a little bit narrower. It pushed it a little bit to the south. We go on throughout the day. Do comparison at 7 a.m. Does have a little bit of an uptick for the South Sound and the Southwest Interior, but it does downtick a little bit for the Central and North Sound. Unfortunately, you guys may hear the dogs outside. Not much I can do about that, so sorry about that. Looking at some of the notifications on Facebook right now. Someone said, so welcome, water. Yeah, basically. Yeah, wasn't planning on going live for too long tonight, just because it's not anything major. I just wanted to be on for maybe 2.5, 3 hours at most, depending on the audience, to just get the word out and tell you guys about the uncertainty of this. Yeah, it looks like that convergence zone is going to hover around eastern Jefferson, northern Kitsap, southern Island, and most of Snohomish County tomorrow afternoon. This is around 4 p.m. and it has a rather expansive convergence zone, but I'm not seeing any indications that we'll see any widespread thunderstorms out of this. I think the thunderstorm threat tomorrow may be a little bit over justified, especially outside of that convergence area. Not seeing any indications that we'll see thunderstorms outside of Snohomish County or areas west. So I think it's going to be a much more conditional risk for that, as far as I can see. Yeah, so the NAM 3KM, the recent 0Z has backed off quite a bit on that. And the Rufus, the RRFS, has just initialized. We also have the 1Z here that goes out to 18 hours, and we'll do a comparison on that too. We'll see where we're at so far compared to the 0Z. We're a little bit of an uptrend along the coast. This would be at 3 a.m. tomorrow. We have a bit of an uptrend along the coast. From the 0Z to the 1Z, we uptick from 28 to 32 miles per hour for Hoquiam. Though we remain around the same for the Puget Sound area. Maybe a little bit more of an uptick for Seattle in vicinity, but not much more significant. Just very small changes from the model to model run. Which is good. You want to see this consistency from run to run. That increases the confidence that this forecast will work out. EJ says, I appreciate the update. Sure thing, my friend. Sure thing. I did miss a comment earlier from someone asking about Longview. And you should be mostly sheltered by the Coast Range and the Willapa Hills. So not seeing any winds much stronger than maybe 30 miles per hour for Longview. Matter of fact, this model doesn't show it getting up to 30 miles per hour. Really at any time. 29 maybe at times tonight and early tomorrow morning, but you should mostly be wind shadowed by the terrain features to your west and your southwest. Hopefully I wasn't too late to answer your question. Sorry if I missed it. Yeah, winds are still pretty anemic at the moment. Even the buoys aren't recording too much wind. Do have a couple of 45s out here. Looks like this is 85 nautical miles west-northwest of Tillamook, which is about 92 miles west-northwest. So some wind gusts there, nothing too major, but it is on par for what we're likely going to see along the coast later tonight and early tomorrow morning. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to cover tonight? Not entirely sure, but yeah, you can see the jet stream punching through this cyclone here, and that's what's causing it to bend back and occlude like that. Because the jet stream is ramming through right now. We got a new frame right there. Yeah, it looks like it's almost moving due east. You can see this a little bit better on the surface analysis too. It's moving a little bit north of east. So yeah, central pressure, the nearest buoy is recording central pressure of approximately 996.6 millibars. So we are seeing a weakening process now, which will help reduce the chance of any strong winds, like moderate winds around the Puget Sound, the coast, Strait of Juan de Fuca, and surrounding areas. That's exactly what we want to see, is that downtrend. Fortunately, I can't go in time far enough to see what our cape's going to be out there, but we can pull that up in the models and see what the instability is looking like under the conversion zone tomorrow and around the rest of the area too. This is simulated satellite. You can clearly see that occlusion right there. But this isn't showing any super tall clouds in the convergence zone. So the risk of any potent thunderstorms tomorrow is going to be rather low. Not seeing any indications that we'll see any widespread instability. But let's just verify that real quick. Let's go with surface-based CAPE first. So surface-based instability, mainly based on surface heating. If we can get enough breaks in the clouds tomorrow. We do have around 241 joules of energy, which is decent in the conversion zone area. So that would probably be enough to maybe get a crackle of thunder or some lightning if the sun's out for long enough. Do have a bit of 0 to 3 kilometer energy as well. So we'll have to watch that closely. That's pretty decent right there. Look at the low level lapse rate. This is the change in temperature with height. The darker the color, the higher the number, the more favorable it is for thunderstorms. Around 4 p.m., it does show lapse rates between 7 to 7.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer, but some lapse rates up here above 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer. That's okay, but not fantastic for thunderstorm potential. The mid-level lapse rates are meager. So you usually want this to be up towards 7 to 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer, but it's not. So I think the risk for thunderstorms is going to be highly conditional tomorrow. Highly conditional. Yeah, let's see where helicity is. Yeah, we'll probably have some turning in the atmosphere tomorrow, some wind shear. If we have any helicity tracks, we do have a few here, but that's likely not going to amount to much. This is basically just showing if a storm's updraft is rotating or not. It's usually a pretty good indicator of, in the Midwest at least, tornado weather, but it's not really useful up here in the Pacific Northwest, so I usually choose to ignore that parameter. Let's see, bulk shear, the best wind shear won't be moving in until after, well, yeah, there'll be some wind shear up there. The best wind shear is going to be over the Cascades of Oregon. This is change of wind direction and magnitude with height in the atmosphere, or basically change of wind velocity with height. And in this case, the strongest wind shear is going to be south of the low pressure center and behind it. So we definitely won't have enough wind shear to support any real significant, let alone robust thunderstorms around the area. Like, not even close. That should be of no concern. Yeah, mixed layer cape is meager. I guess we can go check out some heights on the AI forecast system real quick while I still have a lot of you guys with me here. 12 of you guys on Facebook, approximately 25 of you guys on YouTube. So let's go look at 500 millibar height anomalies. So this is showing geopotential height at 18,000 feet above ground level. Basically what's going on in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, because this has a huge influence on what goes on down at the surface. So you see that cyclone off the coast right now, that cyclone? It's from this upper level trough right here. So that's going to swing through and weaken. Then the jet stream's going to move north of the area, and then we're going to build this ridge, potentially strong ridge over northern Vancouver Island that will block incoming weather for quite some time, at least a few days. This shows the ridge hits its max amplitude around Sunday morning and then begins to retrograde as we go into Monday and Tuesday. And then the potential for some more weak troughing as well, clipping us from Canada. So we could have some cooler, more unsettled weather conditions as we go into the following Thursday. However, take this with a grain of salt. This will probably not verify. It will likely change, and anything from that point on just becomes fantasy land. But we still have pretty high confidence in the next 6. I'm not even going to say that last number, but in the next 7 or so day forecast, as we're seeing on the models here. So the AI forecast system and the traditional European, which is actually a little bit stronger, but a bit farther north and west. You see again, this is our upper level trough responsible for the cyclone, swinging through. And then the jet stream passes to the north and the east. And then we build and amplify that ridge over the Pacific Northwest. So pretty good ensemble agreement between both the European and its AI counterparts. I'm going to guess the GFS is around the same, which it is. So the GEFS, the extended GFS, the American ensemble model, agrees with what the European AI forecast system ensemble model shows. And that's some weak troughing going into about the 10-day period or so. So after we break down this ridge, going into about a week or so. Yeah, because this is the beginning of next week. After we break down this ridge, we'll likely have the jet stream move back south and west. Maybe have a little bit of a more unsettled weather pattern take the helm after that. But you see the disagreement becomes rampant after that. Yeah, that is that. Trying to think of other models to show you. I know the RRFS is rendering, but it's rendering pretty slow. You can probably still get a pretty decent idea of what to look at overnight on that so far. Once again, disclaimer, this is experimental and should not be taken seriously. We're just going to take a look just to get an idea of what could happen into the early morning hours tomorrow. And this does have a surge of maybe some 30 to 35 mile per hour wind gusts across the South Puget Sound area by 11 p.m. tonight. A bit of an uptrend from the last run, or I should say the last full 84-hour run, which was the 18th. So, see, we had a boost in the 21Z. This was the 2 p.m. initiation. And then the 5 p.m. initiation, the 0Z, cuts it off significantly, which again is good news. We really don't want any winds above 35 miles per hour, any gusts. Because that could be enough to cause some tree damage, maybe some power outages, because again, remember, foliage is on the trees. We don't have bare trees this time of the year. That's what sets this apart from the fall and the winter. Sonia Echo Warren says hiding in Centralia. The Centralia area will likely be wind shadowed pretty good by the Willapa Hills. So not expecting anything, really anything at all down there. Probably just a strong breeze, maybe a little blustery at times. Tori Olson's asking, any wind in Snohomish County? Central Snohomish County will probably be wind shadowed by the convergence zone. But there is a possibility that at times before the convergence zone sets up, when the wind's more out of the southwest, before it shifts to the west, you could get pretty windy, but not significantly windy. Maybe 30 to 35 mile per hour gusts at most. And this would be out of the southwest at first, and then switch to out of the west when the westerly surge kicks in around sunrise tomorrow morning. So good news is the Rufus experimental model is not showing anything out of the ordinary, which is a great sign. Yeah, it shows maybe some heavier precipitation coming through in the morning tomorrow. Very early morning, but nothing major again. Just be your typical spring day, but a little bit late in the spring to have something like, you know, mid-latitude cyclone come through. Which is basically just due west of Willapa Bay and the Columbia River Bar. It's starting to get closer. And it looks like this is an occluded front, sagging down along the Oregon coast. And then that should move up towards the Willamette Valley and southwest interior and whatnot, as this low pressure center begins to make landfall tonight. Yeah, sure thing, Tori. Glad to help you out. Take a break to look at some notifications here real quick on Facebook because I have quite a few of them. I just realized my speakers aren't on, so I'm not getting notifications for donations. But thank you so much, Sonia Echo Warren, for your donation of 200 stars on Facebook. Very generous. Appreciate the generosity. Tori is a lineman for Snohomish County PUD and always watching me for updates. Awesome sauce. Appreciate the support and the viewership. Thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. Got a couple other local agencies that follow along too, like Snohomish County Fire District number 4 has been really supportive over the last few months as well. Also, Tacoma Public Utilities follows the page, which I found to be really awesome. I think should be coming out with a new forecast discussion here very shortly. The National Weather Service typically puts out a new forecast discussion every 6 hours. And the last one was at 2:25, so we should be coming up very soon on a new forecast discussion. And we can see what the NWS has to say about what's coming up. They were talking about the thunderstorm potential tomorrow, but even then they weren't super confident in it, and it's most likely going to be directly under the convergence zone if anything comes to fruition. Thank you very much, Sonia, for the kind words. Appreciate it. I think, however, we're going to wind down before that next forecast discussion comes out, because I want to save my voice in case, it gets really whacked tomorrow morning and we have to go into breaking live coverage. I doubt that'll happen, though, but just in the unlikely case, I want to be ready. And in case I have to post updates rapidly, I just want to feel refreshed and ready to go. If that makes sense. So I'm not going to spend all of my resources on this coverage tonight. Since once again, it's a lower end event. We're not expecting much out of this. Could it overperform? Of course. Could it underperform and be a bust? Yeah, but even then, like I said, the ceiling is low and the floor is much lower. So it should be a non-event altogether. We'll just have to watch and see together. Just thought I would go live for a little bit, though, to express my thoughts and just put it out there for anyone who is interested in seeing what was coming, potentially. So, those of you who tuned in tonight, thank you so much for your generosity and for being here. Appreciate it. Not super eventful, I know, but we're just entering that time of the year where, the weather just kind of winds down. Although I do plan on maybe doing some fire weather coverage during the summer. If the weather's not super active, if we're not dealing with thunderstorms or anything like that, I do potentially want to cover fire weather here in the Pacific Northwest. So just do like regular fire updates, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and just see what the engagement's like. Especially if we get fires burning here on the west side, I want to be one of those guys who covers it in real time, multiple times a week. I think that would do really good for the channel and the brand, and of course, getting the word out to people who may not know about these fires. Also, that reminds me, maybe we should check Watch Duty real quick because I haven't checked it today. See what's going on here in Washington. Yeah, so you guys saw my post. It was either yesterday or 2 days ago. We had these 2 very small fires here in Western Washington. We had the schoolhouse up in Clallam County, and we had the Sunset down here in Pierce County. These were both contained rather quick, which is good news. So they were deactivated from the Watch Duty map. And there are no other fires currently burning in Western Washington. We did have this very small beacon fire near North Bonneville, but that was deactivated and no new updates on that. Eastern Washington, good news is they've gotten a lot of progress on this since the last update. We did have a pretty sizable fire down here near Benton City that grew up to 81 acres before it was contained. And then we had this large Butte chestnut fire that was threatening areas near Chelan Falls as well. They revised the size all the way down from 3,000 acres to 1,500 to 877.4. This is the approximate burn area right here. So Chelan Falls is safe, but they do still have some level 1 get ready evacuations for the local area. Not including, okay, actually it does include the Chelan Falls area. So Chelan Falls is still in the level 1 get ready, but there's no get set or go evacuation notices at the moment, which is good. So this fire is now 100% contained and will be deactivated by the Watch Duty map here probably in the next 24 hours or so. Also had a few smaller fires throughout central and eastern Washington over the last few days, but all of these have been contained, thankfully. So there's no out of control fires burning in Washington state. And even in Oregon, the active fires are pretty small at the moment. We do have this Keeney Pass fire down here near Vail, Oregon, that's a little under 100 acres, but has no evacuation notices. And it's only burning on the left side of the road right now, which I suppose is a good sign. Did have a large fire here, almost 2,000 acres, but this has been 100% contained as of yesterday afternoon. Rest of the fires are either prescribed burns or small fires that don't require notifications. Anything with the red flame here with the bell and the cross through it is one that does not have notifications. And these are power outages here. These yellow lightning bolts, these are power outages showing up. Don't know why, but they are showing up. Likely not related to weather since they're only affecting a few customers apiece. But yeah, this is watchduty.org if you guys want to go and find it. Watchduty.org. They also have a great mobile app on iOS and Android too. Highly recommend it during the fire weather season. Lixian, sorry if I mispronounced your name. If you're still in the chat, you want news on Lilywop. Not seeing much of a wind threat for Lilywop. Once again, I got to reiterate, there's not much of a wind threat altogether. This is a very low end scenario, and I'm not seeing any indications that there will be scattered wind damage or power outages. Lilywop should hopefully be sheltered from the strongest winds. You may have some of the southwest winds funnel up through the Hood Canal around the Olympic Peninsula, though. But they shouldn't be strong at all. Probably maybe up to 30 miles per hour at most, I'd say. So nothing significant. You should be okay. TJ says, always enjoyable to be here. Glad to hear it. And Dagmar, hello there. It is cold out. There are no smokes seen. Good to see someone from Eastern Washington tuning in. All right, folks, it is 7:34. We've been going on the stream for about 2 hours and 20 minutes on what I've seen. So appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Can't believe I'm saying a 2.5 hour stream is short compared to what we're used to doing, but you know, this isn't a big storm. It doesn't really require the breaking live weather coverage like I've done from time to time. So just more of a little casual informational live stream that I used to do at least once a week last year. I really have to get into the gist of doing this on a more regular basis. I'd like to do these informational live streams at least once a week, if not twice a week. But my schedule behind the scenes is kind of inconsistent. So any live streams that do happen would most likely be in the afternoon, around 5 p.m., the normal time that I typically set for any casual informational live streams. Yeah, with that being said, I think we got the point across. I think I said everything that needed to be said. Just, keep your eyes to the southwest overnight, early tomorrow morning. Hopefully the wind gusts are not more than anticipated, and hopefully they're less or on forecast. That is the expectation. It's dead silent outside in Tacoma right now, but the center of low pressure has not made landfall yet, so I'm expecting the wind gusts to pick up a little bit off the coast here in probably the next 2 hours or less. If you know anyone along the coast, tell them a storm's coming. If they don't have a barometer outside and haven't already noticed the pressure drop, which has been pretty stark, by the way. I think I can actually pull that up. One last thing before we wrap things up for the night. Let's see if I can pull up my weather station in Milton and see just how sharp the pressure drop has been. Yeah, let me show you guys this real quick. We went up from 29.63 inches at midnight all the way down to 29.3 inches as of 7:34. I honestly do not know how to do this calculation in my head, so I'm going to do it right now here on the side. Let's do 29.63 inches of mercury to millibars. That is approximately 1003.4 millibars. That did not go in right. There we go. About 1003.3 millibars all the way down to 992.2. It's a pretty sharp drop. 992 is decently low pressure. At least for that location. Because that's lower than the observed center of low pressure, which doesn't sound right. I may want to go verify that real quick. Yeah, it might be a glitch with my station because central observed pressure is 996 millibars, and looks like we're ranging between 998 and 999 along the coast, with pressure in the 1002 to 1003 millibar vicinity here across the inland areas in the Puget Sound. So I think my weather station might just be glitching. But nonetheless, let's take one quick last look at radar. I think the steady rain outside of this next band coming up through the southwest interior and the South I-5 corridor right now, that will be it after that for the steady rain from this system. It should just be showers from this point on after this deluge comes up through Olympia. But the heaviest rain after that will likely be in the convergence zone late tomorrow morning and early tomorrow afternoon. Probably most of tomorrow afternoon across much of central Snohomish County and some points west to the Olympics. All right, folks, it was fun. We got a couple dozen of you still hanging around combined, but we're going to begin to wrap things up. Really appreciate you guys hopping in for tonight. I did make sure to give the premium members a little bit of notice. So if you're a Facebook subscriber, patron, a tier 1 patron on Patreon, or a YouTube member, then I gave you a quick little notice a couple of hours ahead of time that I would be going live, likely anywhere between 5 to 6. I was uncertain on if I was going to go live, but things panned out in my favor, and we made the goal going live between 5 to 6. So worked out perfectly. But as long as we don't have any breaking live coverage, I will let you guys know with at least a couple hours notice if we'll do any of these informational live streams on those platforms. Again, if you're a Facebook subscriber, a tier 1 patron, or a YouTube member, I'll give you guys those notifications ahead of time, as long as we don't have to go into breaking live coverage for any reason. Beautiful radar imagery south of Abilene, completely unrelated. I'll have to check that out after the stream ends. Oops, sorry about that. All right, guys, before I hang it up, again, as part of the routine on here, I haven't showed this once, but if you guys would like to donate, the best way to help donate is to do it through coffee.com, ko-fi.com/Puget Sound Stormwatch. I will attach that to the Facebook and the YouTube comments. We're late in the stream, so I don't have to pin it, but this is the best way to donate, and if you guys would like to do so, that would be greatly appreciated to help keep live streams like this possible in the near future. So thank you guys so much again for your generosity. Let's go to 24 frames and loop it. You guys can clearly see that broad area of low pressure approaching the Washington coast. So we're going to end it off on the high note. So really appreciate you guys again for tuning in. This is Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. Haven't gotten any notifications of new subscribers, so I'm guessing probably not much for new subscribers on YouTube. Haven't had any new followers on Facebook. Actually netted -2 today, so I was like, huh, that's funny. But it's no big deal. Anyways, the current follower count on Facebook is 44,236. And a year ago at this time, I never would have thought that was a possibility. So that is massive. I appreciate you guys so much for all the support, even during the downtimes, during the busts. In fact, I still have over 44,000 of you guys here, and 2,300 of you guys on YouTube is incredible. So, hey, Sonia. You're moderating on another stream, one of the chasers, right? Yeah, so thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you guys for the next live stream. I don't think we'll go into breaking coverage tomorrow. I doubt it. Got something on PayPal. Yeah. Thought that was a donation, but it wasn't. It was actually a withdrawal, so. Yeah, again, if you guys would like to donate, best way to do it is through coffee.com. Of course, you can also send a YouTube super chat or stars on Facebook as well. It all goes to the same place. It's just coffee donations go right into the account and the funds are usable right away. Super chats and stars, you have to wait till the next monthly cycle for that. So, yeah, nonetheless, again, this is Anthony here, Puget Sound Stormwatch. Have a great night, folks. Not sure when the next informational live stream will be. Probably sometime before the heat wave starts. So I'd say in the next few days or sometime this weekend. Probably do a quick little informational live stream on the heat risk then. Yeah, like Sonia said, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. See you on the next stream, and good night, folks. This is Puget Sound Stormwatch signing off for coverage. You all have a good one, and hopefully the wind is not too crazy. Have a great night, everyone. Take it easy.